Ladies and gentlemen, today on our Meet the Athlete series, I want to introduce you to the living legend, the one and only, Auntie Liz's third best friend, the greatest man alive, the one, the only, Mark Felix. Enough of that nonsense.
Yes.
Mark Felix. What a man, firstly, Mark Felix is. The 57-year-old Mark Felix attempting to win World's Strongest Man on his 18th appearance. It's quite incredible to talk about someone that is competing at their 18th World's Strongest Man.
Yeah.
It's quite incredible to be talking about a man that is competing at World's Strongest Man at the age of 57.
Yeah.
He's had such an interesting career. He's one of the longest serving athletes we've ever seen, and he still looks fantastic.
He looks amazing, yeah.
He finishes competitions and he's up and he's about and there's no pains, there's no aches. The man is not normal. He's just a freak of nature and everybody loves Mark. The question here though, we are talking about the events, taking a look at how athletes can do. So, how do we feel Mark Felix can do at this year's competition?
But before that, we'll look at our facts and stats. So, of course, you've already mentioned Mark Felix is returning to World's Strongest Man for the 18th time, with his first appearance being way back in 2004.
I clearly remember watching the 2004 show, watching Mark, and being inspired, obviously, by all the guys, but Mark himself. You know, to think I was lucky enough to compete with Mark, but I was inspired by Mark, and now I'm here as an analyst and a commentator, and I talk about Mark, and he's still going. It's quite mind-blowing for someone like myself that's kind of been doing it so long myself, and yet Mark is still there.
Yeah. So as well as Mark breaking his own record for the most appearances at World's Strongest Man this year, he will officially break the record as the oldest person to compete, as when the heat starts on the 19th of April, he will be 57 years and 2 days old. Mark's best finish at the World's Strongest Man so far is 4th place, which was back in 2006, and he's won a total of 24 events in the heats and finals throughout the years. So Mark last made the final in 2015 when he became the oldest man to make the final at 49 years old, and since then he's been third in his group 3 times, but has ultimately lost out on the final to the Stones. So the first event in the heats is the loading race, and Mark has always been an incredibly fit athlete, but looking at his results, he has started to slow down a bit, hasn't he?
Well, you'd expect so.
I know.
Yeah, I think the reality is when you look at the last few years, loading is no longer like a strength for him. He is still more than capable of, but he's certainly not as quick as he used to be. Maybe fitness not quite as good as it used to be as well. It's an event early on in his career, we saw him winning.
Yeah.
But when we look at the last few years, he's been up and down. There's been some decent performance. I think there's a second place he's done at Worlds one year. But if you kind of look... Yeah, last year he was last on the loading. His most recent performance on a loading event at Brits, he was lower down in the table. So I think there's a lot of athletes that can beat Mark on this type of event now.
So one event I'm very much looking forward to seeing Mark do is the deadlift machine, which is the barrel loading, progressively heavier deadlift for reps. And this is an event that for the first 10 years Mark was untouchable on. And even though the deadlift ladder didn't go great for him in the heats last year, and I feel a lot of that is because of transitions, the 2 years before that, he won the deadlift in his group when it was for reps.
Well, having been to World's Strongest Man as many times as he has, he's had a lot of experience on this kit, and he's won it many, many times. The fact that he won't have to move between the bars is a good advantage for him. He understands the equipment very, very well. And although we have had guys that have overtaken him on the deadlift and maybe he's not quite as good as he used to be, he's still a very solid deadlifter. When it comes to like back strength and grip strength, these are where he excels right now. And it's an event he can pick off points, definitely.
Yeah. But then, unfortunately, on the opposite end of the spectrum, we have the overhead event, which is going to be a log ladder this year. Now, log ladder actually isn't as bad for him as, say, last year when it was a standard log for reps and he zeroed. He could get the opener.
I think the fact that it's a medley or a ladder in this case is better for him because that lighter first log means he will get a point. In World's Strongest Man, if you zero, which means if you can't do anything on the equipment, then you get 0 points. but I think this will allow him to at least get 1 point.
Every point matters as well.
I really can't see him getting better than 1 point unless someone gets injured, because his pressing is a big weakness at World's Strongest Man. It's not even, it's not bad for World's Strongest Man. There's a lot of guys that can't go to World's Strongest Man that would still beat Mark on a log lift. So it is an event that is just not good enough right now for that level. And I think the fact that he can just get a point is a little advantage.
Now, the great thing about looking at Mark is that there's so much data.
Too much.
Too much, because it can become confusing. Now, looking at the Conans, obviously he's done it so many times, but you're looking at different eras of strongman as well, and I have to just go by the more recent stuff.
Absolutely.
And we do see him do Conans fairly frequently, because it's often at Britain's Strongest Man. He's all over the place, if I'm honest. He can do very, very well. He can do really poorly. Generally, he is mid-pack though, and it'll be interesting to see how that stands up in a World.
And I think that's where we'll see Mark on this type of event. It depends, you might get a newbie in your group that's just not experienced on the type of equipment or the pressure of being at Worlds, but I think he's going to be sort of mid-table-ish, maybe slightly lower on this one. As we said, there was a time Mark was good at these kind of events,
very good.
But he has lost a bit of that speed and strength, which is understandable. Still good enough to beat top guys, but I just don't think quite good enough to sort of guarantee big points.
No. And then we move on to the kettlebell throw, and unfortunately, again, this is not a really good event for Mark, is it?
No, and it's never been a good event for Mark. He's never been one of the most coordinated in terms of throwing type events. So, sadly for Mark, I don't think it's the best events for him at this year's World's Strongest Man, especially as he's announced it's going to be his last one. I think last year he had that grip hold, the wrecking ball. That would have been a good one for him. Like something like that, he can still beat absolutely anyone at. Don't feel he's got that banker this year in the events in the heats, and he has a few weaknesses as well. So I do think Mark's going to struggle.
I think it's going to be a struggle to get to the stone off this year.
I have to agree. As much as
we would love it.
I think everyone would go nuts to see Mark in the final.
Can you imagine?
I can't see it happening. But the fact that he's there, and like I said, he is more than capable on every event other than the overhead. The overhead, he's just not good enough at that level. But he can still hang and prove he's good enough. So I hope he goes out on a high. I hope he enjoys it. I hope the fans get behind him. And more than anything, I hope Mark has fun with it, because an amazing ambassador for the sport. As I said at the start of this video, someone that inspired me to get into Strongman. He's a lovely human being, and just to be able to do what he can do at his age is unbelievable. But when it comes to the nitty-gritty, hardcore, how's he going to do? Unfortunately, I don't see Mark getting out of the group. So guys, that's Mark Felix. Make sure you get behind him at his last World's Strongest Man. Let us know your thoughts as always in the comments below. How would you like to see Mark? I know there's people out there who would love to see him take the win. It's just natural. But we have to be
realistic.
I'm annoyingly realistic, I know that.
Yeah, I'm annoyingly emotional, but even I can be realistic when I need to be.
Good stuff. So let us know your thoughts, guys. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time. Stay strong.